What is up, everybody? Justin here, aka No Good Comics, and welcome back to the channel. Welcome back again for a second time around. If anybody was here with me previously, just an hour ago, as I was talking to Patrick. Yeah, very excited because we are going to be breaking down the Ultimate Spider-Man by Brian Michael Bendis. Very, very excited to dive into this. And of course, let me first bring on my co-host for comic book team up. We have Victoria Read Across the Stars. Hey.
Good morning. Wow. Good morning for me. Good afternoon for you
Yeah,
guys.
I'll take a good morning.
Yeah. So
How you doing?
Very excited about this. Yeah, very excited about this book. Almost missed it because I was asleep, but we're here now.
All good. We're here now. That's right. And of course, we are not just the two of us. We have our special guests, multiple guests that we have today. Really excited. We have, for the first time ever, Kate and Charlie and some other guy, I think his name's John, that's going to be joining us as well. So here they are. Yeah, some dude. Here they are. Hey.
Yay.
I'll just hide behind the book. I'll read it while we're going live.
Yeah. That's perfect.
So we don't need to see the random dude.
Yeah, Kate and Charlie, I wanted to welcome you on my channel because I've never streamed with you before, other than we've hung out previously for a little bit, and obviously I always see you guys on your Saturday live streams, which are always fun. So I'm a big fan, and I know we talked to Legos last time. We'll definitely do some Lego building at some point, not on this stream, but some point. But I want to thank you both for being here, and John, you as well. Thank you as well. And everybody in the chat, if you are not subbed up to this crew here, make sure you do so. I put all the links in the description below. And yeah, like I had mentioned before, we're talking you gotta work on that. We're talking Ultimate Spider-Man by Brian Michael Bendis. So before we get into it, let me just say a quick hello to the chat. I do see, I love. So you have the omnibus and you have the other hardcover. Yeah, John. Okay, that's very cool.
Oversized hardcover, is that what they're called? They've got
I think
library.
Yeah,
like a library edition.
Specific title for it. Yeah, I don't remember.
That's cool.
They're very cool. I do love them though.
All right, we got Ruben Guzman, Cowabunga, my friend. Thanks for stopping by. We also have Brandon in the house, Comics Kings. What's going on, Brandon? We got my man Steve, Hip Hops and Me. Just saw him in my previous chat as well. Thanks for hanging out with us today, Steve. There he is, Patrick, Big Lion Cat. I was just talking with him earlier for Comic Collector Origins. He goes, I feel like I was just here. Yeah. Where you were just here. Good to see you, Patrick. Thanks for hanging out with us as well. We got Unruly Simeon in the house. What's going on, Unruly? Victoria pulling double duty here, station. Love it. Cool. So guys, make sure you smash the like button if you haven't already, and like I said, make sure you're subbed up and following these great people here for YouTube. And so let's get into this. We have no real structure, right? V and I, we've been doing these comic book team ups. This is technically episode 8 now that we've done, which is really cool.
Yeah.
We'll
be coming up on a year in like March or something as well.
I think so. About a year. Yeah.
Wow.
It sounds about right.
Yeah.
And it's been awesome. It's been a lot of fun. And so we picked Ultimate Spider-Man. John, I have to give you a majority of the credit here because I think it was you who was the one that actually you, Charlie and Kate, because you guys you had talked about it last year. Yeah, I know you're all big fans. And I more recently, after watching the movie, was like, I really need to get more into Spider-Man. Where should I start? And John, you were like right away, like, well, obviously, like Bendis is a great place to start with this. For anyone who might be new or dabbling in it. And then I talked to V about it. V, you were very hyped about it as well. Victoria, you had read this. So. Yeah, so you had read this once before, right?
Yeah, I had read a wee bit of it back when that Tobey Maguire first Spider-Man movie came out, like back in the early 2000s when I was young, because I used to make my dad take me. So I read a little bit of it then, and then I read it all maybe I think around the time that Civil War came out in the MCU. When Tom Holland first got cast as Spider-Man. So I read it all then as well, which was awesome. Lots of fun.
Very nice.
Yeah.
And I have to ask Kate and Charlie. Now, Kate, I'll start with you. How have you read this? You've read this before, right? How many times have you read this series? Have you read it a few times or?
I've definitely read it a few times.
Nice.
Probably under 3 times, just because it's such a long run.
It is a long run.
Yeah.
But this volume you've probably read
a bunch of times.
The first one, right?
And I really like like number 4 and number 6 are like my favorites.
Oh,
out of
really?
them. So I jump in between those
Oh.
and this one. So
Okay. I'm gonna note that because when I get there, I'll have to let you know what I think of those as well. And Charlie, what about you? You've read this before, right?
Yeah, I've read it like probably a little more than 3 times.
Nice.
I like all of them. I think it's the problem for me is reading it. I just get really frustrated a lot. Like
Frustrated?
Mm.
When it comes to like who he's dating, why he fought this person this way, these choices that he made. It's like,
Yeah.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well,
I
yeah,
love that.
this is a first time go around for me. So I've only read the first 7 issues so far. And I know that's what we're going to mainly dive into today, but I'm very excited, especially as you've all mentioned, how great the series is and so many other different things that kind of go along with it. So I am excited for that as well. Hey, we got Bronze Page in the house. What's going on the Bronze Page? Thanks for stopping in as well. Unruly said, I hadn't bought a floppy in over 10 years. I bought a copy of this and just devoured all of the Ultimate stuff. That's cool.
I've heard that from a lot of people in our community that like somehow this was an entry point to come back into comics for them because it was such an easy jumping on point. You did not need to have any knowledge of anything at all. You could just consider this your very first superhero comic and just go right in blind.
Right. And John, go ahead.
Sorry. And just to add on to what John said, I'd also heard like the same thing, and also people that are wanting to read kind of the older Spider-Man stuff, but they, for whatever reason, just don't find, like 60s, 70s comics readable for their personal taste. So this is such an awesome jumping in point for people like that as well. So I've heard that a lot.
And John, I meant to ask you as well, how, like, you've read this several times, right? I mean, this is...
I have not finished the run. I've read the first 3 of the hardcovers. So that's each hardcover that we have. If Charlie scoots over a little bit, this is the set we've got. We are missing 1 volume of it. We're missing 11.
Nice.
But each of these covers 2 of the trades that they sell. I think they still sell them, but they're easy to find the floppier trades. So there are 24 then individual trades.
Nice.
So I've read the first 6 trades then.
Wow.
Which would be 3 of these volumes.
Nice. Okay. Very nice. Well, I thank you all for this recommendation for me. I definitely am really enjoying it. So I guess we kind of just jump into this with some initial thoughts here. Victoria, I'll pass it to you first. What were your thoughts on this first volume here? And, what did you think?
It's a little bit, that kind of like nostalgic feeling, I guess, because I did read it obviously in the early-ish 2000s. I would have been like 8 or 9 or something like that. And that was also probably around the time that I first made my dad buy me comics in the first place. The first one he ever bought me was like a random Batman No Man's Land issue.
Nice.
But then like a couple of these as well. And then reading it when Tom Holland first got cast in the MCU, because we all know that I love the MCU. So reading it all then, I think really kind of solidified it into like a really enjoyable kind of read for me, because I could kind of link those together. Along with what the girls were saying. You do feel a little bit frustrated with the teenage choices that Peter makes though, because you're just like, dude, why you do this? So but it's just so much fun. I love the Bagley's over exaggerated art style, with the big eyes, and all of that sort of stuff is just really cool and modern and fresh and fun. And it still holds up even 20 years later. I think personally there's a few little dialogue things that you're a bit ugh, you wouldn't kind of say or use that now, but
right.
It's really cool. So
nice.
Overall it's a high up on my list. I'd definitely be giving it to Lila when she's ready to read more stuff like this. Take it.
Start with this. Love it. I love it. I'm going to pass it to Charlie. Charlie, what were your initial thoughts on this series? On this first.
Same with Victoria, how I felt a lot of the teenage choices were why are you doing that? It's come on, you could have done something a lot better.
Yeah.
I did think that really weird scene where he kind of just dressed in a black suit and starts doing gymnastic moves was kind of a little bit for me. It was kind of random. I was like that one skateboarding scene in Andrew Garfield's movies. It's just kind of
Oh yeah.
What are you doing? You look like you kind of look like an idiot.
Yeah.
Flipping. And also like just a random
It's
warehouse.
supposed to look cool though.
But it isn't.
But it does it though.
Yes.
And I feel like if I had a few questions, like if Marianne or Mary Jane, if like sews his costume,
Wait,
How-
that doesn't necessarily happen.
Yes, it
in
happens.
that happens in the
that's how
first
he gets
volume.
his first. That's how he gets his first suit. She sews it for him.
Okay.
But it's like
No, he gets it from the
the wrestling guys. But
wrestling
then, like,
people. They give
yeah,
it to him,
but,
and
like,
then Mary
also
Jane
the
does it.
wrestling. Yeah, but then also the wrestling people, like, didn't they ask him to take off the mask or like recognition, like ID or something? Like, what's your name? He's like, Spider-Man.
No.
Like, and then like it went to he became Spider-Man. Was the wrestling people ever like, we own this guy, we made him, or something?
Right.
Do you have
Right.
trouble with that?
All valid, Charlie. Kate, what about you? What were your initial thoughts of the beginning of this?
Well, I love Spider-Man. He's like he's so awesome. I love him as a superhero, and I love Peter too, and MJ and everything with their story in this specific run. And the way, like, because we don't see in the MCU his backstory, so the way they put his backstory into this like run was really good, and I really enjoy the backstory. So
Yeah.
I love it. I mean, I love this run.
Yeah. No, I'm with you. That's great. And John, I'll pass it to you. What are your initial thoughts here?
I don't know if Victoria was this way, but I grew up with the McFarlane, Larson, and then Bagley Spider-Man art. So like for me, like I remember when Bagley first ran ASM and the work he was doing on Amazing Spider-Man, all the Carnage stuff that he did. And so like his art style is definitely connected with the nostalgia of Peter Parker for me. So then when he jumped onto this run, it felt just like a continuation. And shout out to you, Unruly, who says he has a few pages from this. I'm assuming he means the actual original artwork from this run, which is unbelievable.
Really cool. Yeah.
I will say the one thing that's always driven me crazy about Peter Parker is people just seem to not be able to draw his hair. And it just drives me crazy. I mean, I said it about Todd McFarlane. I think his Peter Parker hair is ridiculous. He's got like this like really big curl going, and it's always been the case with Bagley too. So every time I see Peter's hair, I'm like, oh, dude, come on. It's like bad Harry Potter. Like you need to just get a cut, buddy.
He does get a haircut
eventually.
That's a great point. I did question that a little bit as I was kind of diving into some of this. I was like, is that how his hair was or is, or you know?
It was true even when the Ditko run, he was always extra nerdy, awkward, and the hair was always a little bit out of place. Yeah. It took until Romita Sr. got on board, and he got a ton of criticism because he made Peter Parker super handsome, super fit looking, super nice hair. It went from being this really awkward, nerdy guy who never looked like your prototypical handsome hero. And Romita Sr. was like, I'm just going to soften the edges here a little bit. And it's personally my favorite iteration of Spider-Man, but I get why people want him to look more like this. You know?
Right. Yeah. Brandon says Bagley is my favorite all-time favorite artist of all time, and this run solidifies his legacy there. So much to love about this run. Yeah, definitely, for sure. Hey, Air Spider in the house. What's up, Air Spider?
The original Osborn with the sideways cornrows. Yeah, ridiculous. It's like when you like have the hair that's like woven down tightly to your head.
The braids.
Yeah, like the braids. Milo did it in the class recently.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, the wildest perm of all time.
The Osborn boys here drives me crazy. I think it's horrendous.
Yeah.
I really hate it. So even when it came up in that like Sins Rising run recently, I was like, can we move on from this, please?
Yeah. You just want to get him back in the Spidey suit. And you're like, okay, in the Spidey suit, I don't have to see the hair. Just go.
Yeah.
And like, I think actually in one of the books, his one of his girlfriends actually like gets him a haircut and says the reason is when he puts on his mask, it actually looks rounder because of his hair. Like in the later books, you'll notice that his head gets rounder and rounder in the mask.
Oh wow!
Yeah, that's so funny. On his hair in this particular trade, though, I do, like when I was at we call it intermediate school, I think it's middle school for you guys, that was a haircut that a lot of boys had though. Like a lot of boys that I went to school with had that haircut. So I was looking at it and I was like, seems right to me. Still hate it, but yeah.
Yeah, that's that definitely was something I kept kind of wondering during this. So I mean, I think that this was a great introduction to. It was everything I was looking for in terms of just getting a little bit more of a glimpse of the origin story, or just the relationships that he had, with his aunt and uncle, the relationships at school or lack thereof, and like I think that I was kind of like. I really liked how closely it was with the films. And again, like I'm just thinking back to a lot of the movies and how that was. And there were some scenes that were like, oh man, that like almost scene for scene, like for some of these movies, like the wrestling stuff, some of that, like I just didn't know how on point the films were compared to the books until now. Like didn't realize that, didn't know there was a wrestling scene. Like I didn't know that was actually a thing, even something like that. So to kind of see something like that was really nice to see. And I noticed like, and I don't know if this is how he always was or not, but I feel like Peter became really cocky in certain moments, or like overly confident, right? Like, is that how it was for like even the original books, or the character is who he is? Like, cause I just thought he was always a nerd. Like I thought he was always like not cocky, I guess, or,
I feel like when he
it's almost like a persona. Yeah, it's like a persona. Do you think, guys? Like,
yeah,
it's sort of like when he gets the spider powers, it's almost like he gets this extra persona, and he's got to work out how to use the persona as well as the powers. I reckon. I don't know. Yeah, but I agree. There's like with the basketball stuff, you're like,
yeah,
cut it out.
I feel like when he puts his mask on, he has more of like a cocky persona, but then when he's like normally like Peter Parker, he's much more of a nerd, and he's like, computers,
socially
and stuff
awkward
like that. Yeah, but when he's Spider-Man, he knows like I feel like
jokes.
Almost that his actions, like his like jokes and the way he talks, doesn't have a consequence just because no one knows who he is.
Yeah.
Right.
It's like helpful like that.
And really is making the point, like he was always like he was before Deadpool. Like Peter Parker was the one that ran his mouth when he was in a fight. Like, and they joke about it in Civil War, right? In the movie, when he says like, I don't know how many fights you've been in before. There's usually not this much talking. Like, because that was Peter. He was always kind of running his mouth and just kind of like quick talking. And I will say this first arc, if you take out the Green Goblin stuff, everything else, like with what happens to Uncle Ben and getting bit by the spider and learning how the power, all of that is Amazing Fantasy issue 15, the original first appearance of Spider-Man.
Oh, it's all in one?
It's all in that first appearance. They cover it's basically a giant origin issue, and it's like it goes through who he was before, it goes through getting bit, it goes through getting his powers, it goes through Uncle Ben dying. I mean, it's like all in that one issue, and which is why every iteration includes those moments, because it's just so closely tied to everything that makes him who he is.
Wow. Okay. Yeah. Hey, we got Simon R in the chat. Hello, Simon R. Air Spider 23 says Garfield was the best representation of the talker Spidey. Interesting. Yeah.
Right.
It just makes me think of that, the scene where he's like, "Oh no, my greatest weakness, tiny knives." It's just such a good, like, like classic kind of Peter Parker comic book onto like page to screen kind of moment. I found like really over exaggerated, lots of that smack talk. Like, that scene was just so funny.
Yeah.
So,
So I wanted to just kind of, I guess we can kind of, I didn't know how you guys wanted to break it down. We could just talk about some of our favorite parts and things like that. One of the things that I wanted to mention was like when he chases down the burglar essentially who had killed Uncle Ben and all that. That ended a little different than the film and everything, right? In terms of how he ended up killing him, right? And he ended up giving him to the police or whatever. I like that they still touched on that, and you just see this complete struggle of him and what he's going through with, obviously he's a kid and he's angry and he's connecting the dots and realizing like that he feels like it was on him because he let that guy go earlier. That was the other thing too. It was a little different where he like the burglar came running out. It wasn't quite like the movie, like, you know, that it tied into the wrestling scenes and all that. But I like that they still had like, you know, had used that. But that was a heavy, I mean, heavy set of moments for me. Like, I just feel like, again, seeing him struggle, seeing him really put it on himself that he like he could have done something better, and that's now triggered him to be like, now I'm going to just do better every time. Like I want to do my job in a sense, or do what I'm responsible. He feels now responsible to do, like to be able to, now that he has these powers and stuff like that, right? Oh, yeah, there you go.
Get this panel straight after that, which kind of, you know, is him, his verbal dialogue in there, you know, kind of showing that he's sort of learned that pretty quickly, pretty early on. And we also, just before that page, we get this really cool panel with him. Sorry, on the other side, up there.
Yeah.
This one. That's a really cool panel, I thought.
That is cool.
Yeah.
Yep. Very cool.
And so like you're saying, in different iterations, the burglar dies or is caught and taken in. But in all the iterations, Peter has to face the fact that he is somewhat responsible for what's going on after he chases the guy down, and then has to come to terms with the question of, am I a killer? Like, am I here to just get revenge, or am I doing something more? Which is that quote, that great power, great responsibility, you know, ideal at the core of kind of what Peter represents.
Yeah, definitely. This also massive panel here. Just jumping backwards. I found this really, really emotional. It's really brutal that they've got, like, you know, the outline of Uncle Ben there, like he was actually shot in their home. I thought that iteration was like really quite powerful and really upsetting. So but I also, not to say that I like where it builds on putting May with a little bit of the sense of community with Mary Jane's family and kind of like going from there. So I kind of like that goes in that direction a little bit, even though it is really horrifically sad. So
you also get amazing ponytails and men with goatees or flavor savers. Like, it's a very common it's a very common, like, early 2000s. Not to, you know, obviously we have a panelist to pull him out.
Hey, Ariel Red.
Like, you look at Uncle Ben with the ponytail, and I'm always like, oh man,
I love it.
What's going on, Ben? And then you look at the morgue guy who's taking the body away on that splash page. He's got the long goatee point. He's got like 6 piercings on one ear and the ponytail. It's quite a look.
My man Rod in the chat. What up, Rod? We had Desired Comics, Ariel Red. Thank you all so much for hanging out with us.
I think that's the fun that I think Bagley and Bendis have, which is to play with the look of these characters a little bit. And I was going to show the Green Goblin's look, because I think this is very different than we've seen the Green Goblin ever before.
Yeah, totally.
Oh, totally. Yeah, I was like, I was almost second guessing. I was like, who is that supposed to be? Is that supposed to be Green Goblin? Like, I did in my initial thought, I was a little.
And it's very true to, or I guess I'd say it very much inspired the Miles Morales animated Green Goblin, which is this giant beast with like wings and ripped muscles and such. So if you've seen that Edge of the Spider-Verse film.
Ooh.
Edge of the Spider-Verse film, you get that kind of like beastly looking one.
Yeah, look at that.
Which is very different than the one where it's like, it's a green mask and he just pulls it off and he's just a guy underneath.
Yeah. Is that a pop technically? Is that a pop? Cool.
Yeah.
That's a cool one.
That's him from Into the Spider-Verse. So they've totally used their Bagley artwork to inspire the way that they designed him for that film, which I think is really cool. So yeah. My daughter hated him when we first watched that. She was like, "Oh, he's scary. I hate him." No way.
Charlie, I wanted to ask you, what was did you have a favorite moment of this series, or anything that stood out to you from these earlier issues that you really liked?
I mean, I really like how he sort of like actually really thinks everything out. I think there are moments where he like doesn't think at all. But, like that one scene where, like, when the Green Goblin comes to his school and he's like runs to the bathroom to change. And then he's like, if I jump out of the school in my suit, people could figure it out. So like things like that where he thinks it out before he does it, which I think is very important for his character.
Totally.
And
Absolutely.
then I love like his smart mouth. It always makes it funny.
There he is, like he runs away from the school, gets changed, and then swings back into the school because he doesn't want to come out of the school as if he's a student at the campus.
Right.
Doesn't want people to realize.
And this is all like growing pains for him, right? He has to really. Yeah. I mean, it's all new to him, so he doesn't,
Yeah. Plus the fact that he like cares enough to wear a suit under, like that means that just shows you like he really cares. He really just wants to be like, right on. Like most superheroes have it in their backpack, or like Tony just has like a little bracelet where he just Tony Stark, and boom.
Yeah.
How about Captain America? I don't know how he does it.
Oh,
he doesn't have. He is
rocks around in his clothes all the time.
That's true. Yeah.
It's more like where does he carry the shield?
Wow. It's like.
Are you going to show the same one? I was going to show that.
Yeah.
So good.
Hold on, yeah.
That's really fun. That fight in high school is a great scene, Charlie.
It's so cool.
Love that scene.
Hey, we got Eric in the chat. Azor's Tiger. What's up, Eric? I'm gonna pass it to Kate. Kate, what was like a scene or a moment that you really liked from this book?
I think Uncle Ben's death. It's not like something I like, but it made me
emotional.
sad.
Yeah.
It made me really sad, and it made me feel terrible for Aunt May. Because I feel like in the movies, you just see Peter's side. You don't see Aunt May's side as much as but I feel like this one really focuses more on her because it follows her for like the rest of the books, and she talks about it in almost every book.
Yeah.
And they don't do that in the movies. So
that's a great point.
Yeah.
I liked it in this.
Yeah, even seeing her have to explain to the police like what had happened, and if you just like almost putting yourself in her shoes of just like how to even explain what happened after actually seeing it all, and then as the other panel that Victoria was showing earlier of them in the house and kind of the body marks marked out on the floor and stuff like that. It is very emotional. I definitely like went through that and kind of took my time to read and just to get the emotion side of that.
Yeah.
Let's see. I mean, V, was there, or actually I'll pass it to John. John, was there any other moment that stood out to you here or something that you really enjoyed?
I mean, I think they do a good job of combining two of the bigger story arcs of early Spider-Man, which is the creation of the Green Goblin and dealing with him, and the creation of Spider-Man and dealing with his powers and how that all came, and blending them together into one storyline that sets up later on the all the death of Gwen Stacy stuff that we love that has to be part of his later origin if you want to like reboot his origin in some way. But if all the groundwork is laid here where he battles the Green Goblin, nobody really wins. Green Goblin just sort of like bubbles come up from the water and okay, he's coming back later. And it sets up the universe and all the pieces are laid out so that you can then throw in a Kingpin, which is later on, and Kraven or whomever.
I wanted to ask you guys what you thought of in issue 4, I think it was, where he towards the end he like most of the earlier issues he's really like he discovers these powers and he decides to keep it to himself. He doesn't, want to share that, especially with the family. But later in issue 4, especially, I think it's towards the very end of issue 4, he finally like has this talk with himself of like, all right, it is time now. I think it's time for me to, because they've been kind of clashing, or with his Aunt May and stuff. And he's like, I think it's time to like reveal kind of what's been going on. And then that's the whole thing of he comes home and the police cars are out front. That's when the whole scene had happened. Yeah, there it is. What are your thoughts on that? Like, or what are your thoughts on just the idea of like why not tell your aunt and uncle, or or what do you think? Why did he keep it to himself? I guess.
I think that if they knew, they would probably not let him do it, even if they knew that he's like super fast and he can probably avoid a ton of injuries. But I feel like Aunt May would be super hesitant, and it also endangers them for like criminals, and it could like really impact them. So I
that's great.
Think they would be super hesitant for it all.
Yeah, that makes sense. They'd be worried.
I think the motivation switches too, because at the beginning when he first got the powers, you see him at the party and the girls are interested in him, and he's just like, "No, I'm invulnerable." That teenage thinking comes through, and then he has that big blowout with his uncle, and says some things that he maybe really regrets.
Yeah.
And then when he comes home and finds Uncle Ben dead, I think he feels pretty strongly that I can't tell him this. Like I got to keep this. So I think his reasons change after Uncle Ben dies, but I think it's a selfish reason and then a selfless reason.
I think also, with the party, like Uncle Ben didn't let him go to a party. He probably wouldn't let him be Spider-Man.
That's true.
Yeah,
and especially after Aunt May had lost Uncle Ben, it was definitely a bad idea because if he told her, she probably would say no because she already lost Uncle Ben. She's like, Peter's the only like living blood relative like in her life right now.
Yeah, only person to look after her and all that.
If he left, if he left, like she probably wanted to feel very guilty for losing both of them, sad she lost both of them, and then just feel like super guilty to Peter's parents because they put him in her care and she didn't succeed.
Yeah. Great points.
Yeah.
V, was there another part that you wanted to point out or something that you liked?
I think that Bendis also kind of set it up for us in that, how Peter punches Flash in the face or whatever it was that he does and sends him to the hospital, and then Ben and May have that conversation about money and they don't know how they're going to pay for this medical bill, and Peter listens and, he gets that the money from the wrestling, and it kind of sets all that stuff in motion. You can see that Peter almost has this like mounting sense of responsibility even then to look after his aunt and uncle because they took him in, they look after him like after his parents left. And so like I feel like a lot of that kind of, like he's a teenagers keep secrets. I don't know about you girls, but like I sure did when I was Peter's age. And so I think like one, it's that teenage sort of like almost like knee-jerk reaction, especially back then, to keep secrets, and then that's how it reads to me. And then also he compounds that with this growing sense of responsibility, and it kind of just keeps getting bigger. Like he just kind of continuously feels like he's more and more responsible for more and more things. So he just wants to protect Aunt May. Like who's going to look after her but him? So yeah, that's how I read it, and why I kind of makes sense that he keeps it a secret versus, and obviously we see in the MCU films where Aunt May finds out pretty quickly. That version of Aunt May, like is younger, is more resilient. She's a completely different character. She's got more agency. You don't see her relying on Uncle Ben. You see her going out of her way to help people with her food, shelter, and stuff like that. So in that iteration, it makes more sense that she could handle it. But in this iteration where Aunt May is a lot older and a lot needs care and, needs a more kind of like gentle, familial approach, like you can kind of see why choices were made in the writing. Sorry, I rambled again.
No, you're good. Yeah, no, absolutely. It's great points. I think we should talk a little bit about Harry Osborn and kind of the development of that. It was nice to kind of get a glimpse of seeing their relationship from this perspective, and as him being the sports guy and more, the more popular guy in school, but also he included Peter in some stuff. But also, this is all what like got Peter in trouble, or well, not in trouble, but he got bit by the spider because he was back at the lab, and I know like. Was it Harry's? What's Harry's dad's name?
Norman.
Like Norman was.
Osborn.
Yeah, like he was like just straight evil like the entire time. Was like like he never had like a, I don't know, like a, which I guess that's just that's how he was written up. But like,
I think the iteration in the Tobey Maguire film is a little more like mentally unstable than in the comics, or at least at the get-go. He was definitely sort of Machiavellian. And it was Harry who had a drug problem in the comics and was somewhat mentally unstable and later took over for his dad as the Green Goblin, versus Norman slowly went crazy and lost it. At the beginning, he was definitely just a very conniving businessman.
Yeah. Corporate greed.
Yeah. I was surprised that they like when the doctors like took his blood and like that one scene where they basically do it without his permission, and they just like I'm just like, whoa.
I tabbed that in here. This scene here, yeah, I tabbed it with. So my orange tab means like ooh gross because I don't like the orange tabs. So I like tabbed it because I was like ooh gross. They just went and they were just like yoink, and Peter was like oh fuck you guys, and like runs off, and Harry's like Peter come back.
Dr. Octopus.
That whole scene was just like ugh,
yeah,
gross. Ew.
Dr. Octopus.
I love the
evil
over
from the jump.
exaggerate.
yeah.
Yeah, I love the over exaggerated way here that Peter like runs off real dorky as well. That looks so funny.
Yep.
Yeah.
Also,
That's
like,
great.
yeah, in that scene, like if Harry noticed that, like, first of all, if Harry didn't notice that the guy was holding a needle with blood in it, and then well, first of all, like how blind are you? But second of all, like if he did notice it, like let's presume he did. Why didn't he like take that away or something?
Yeah.
Like, why didn't he stop him from keeping it? Yeah,
Right.
like why did he let him keep it?
I think Harry is still really under his dad's thumb.
He's blind.
And really, even when he finds out, like he doesn't really say anything right off the bat. When he sees the beast bouncing around his high school, he's not like, "That's my dad."
Yeah.
He's like, he just says, "I know who that is," and
Yeah.
doesn't know what to do about it, and certainly feels concerned that he feels responsible for what his dad has become.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was definitely a different kind of story told compared to the movies. It was just that scene, that opening scene. I think it's like issue 5, or maybe I don't know, 5 or whatever. But where Harry like sees this beast like leave the house essentially, and that even for like a second, I was questioning because I'm like, all right, so I'm pretty sure this is where Green Goblin comes in, but like seeing the Green Goblin, the side, like going back to like we were talking about how big he is and much more of a monster. I was almost questioning like, wait, is that supposed to be him? But I'm like, okay, no, the pieces all connect. So I just was so used to this smaller, Green Goblin from the old comic books or whatever. Yeah, Unruly says Harry has always been a little off. Bless his heart.
Because I mean, they did that. I mean, it was not long after the Green Arrow and his apprentice, the Red. I don't know what his name is, but he had the Red. He had the drug issue where his apprentice was a drug addict, and then it wasn't too long after that. It was like Harry Osborn had a drug problem, and they did a similar storyline. And there were issues in the Marvel version with putting the stamp, the seal of the Comic Code Authority seal on it, because they would not, too much drug talk, they wouldn't let them. So they rammed the issue without the Comic Code Authority seal on it.
I was always wondering, I always hear people talk about those issues as like, oh, those are the drug issues or
it was a big deal at the time because obviously the drug scene was really popular and it was all over the place, and for a comic to address it head on and say, hey, we're not even going to let you put a rating on this comic, we're just going to publish it. It was a big deal.
Right. Yeah, when that was what in the 70s?
It had to be the 60s, I think.
Or 60s. Okay. Yeah. I definitely recognize those covers. I wanted to show a scene here that I think is like just a scene that stood out to me from before, and I went through it. And of course, John, you're gonna laugh because you know me and how I feel about this particular item. But let's blow this up. I mean, it's not really a scene to look at, but where they're talking, and one, every time they're like, Peter, are you in the house? That's just like their way of checking in to see if he's actually there. And they go, what's for dinner? They go, meatloaf. He goes, pizza, meatloaf, pizza. He's like, is it pizza for dinner? I'm just cracking up because
that's definitely speaking to Justin.
I love pizza. Yeah.
Oh yeah, and then she's like, pizza. And it's like pizza, and she says, pizza that tastes like meatloaf.
Yeah.
Yeah, it looks and tastes an awful lot like meatloaf. I've had that conversation with my daughter almost word for word. So
this is cool too, by the way. This is right after that scene, but him
as the wrestler
on that page too.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I always thought that was cool.
They also pulled this move a couple of times where he's like breaking a chair. He just has these spasms.
Yeah, it's like a running gag, isn't it? Where he keeps breaking the desk because he's like jumping off or whatever, and then he's like, whoa.
Yeah, like 3 times. Yeah.
He just has these spasms. But I do like the idea that it's not just like an easy transition like it is in most of the comic and movie stories. It's like once the first initial day of shock is over, he doesn't really have any negative reactions to this process. It's just like, no, my genetics are fused now. I'm Spider-Man. It's all good. Like, I like the concept that it's like, it could, they even say like, I think it's killing him. And then all of a sudden his system is able to adapt. and then he is able to take it all in. I like that better than just the instant transformation, personally.
Yeah, no, it's a great point.
And
the students too, they're all like, you keep breaking chairs. Keep breaking
desks. Do you think that the intention behind the way that Bendis wrote it for this iteration was that, you know, he wrote those scenes where in the mall the kids are throwing food at Peter, and then, you know, in gym class the teacher's like, oh, are you a woman, or whatever it was, like some misogynistic shit. Do you think that the way that or the intention could have been that, like, Peter's maybe mindset was like, anything is better than this, so if I'm a freak, then at least that's better than what I was before? Like, that was how I read it anyway, because he was seemed pretty sad little guy, whereas then he's like, I'm super strong now, and, you know, we went through his cocky phase and all that sort of stuff. So yeah. But that scene right at the start where they're like throwing food and Mary Jane just sits there and is like, doesn't say anything. I thought that was pretty bloody sad as well, considering that you kind of get the sense that they are supposed to be friends right off the bat.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's kind of like that's another reason why he probably kept it secret and didn't freak out and stuff. So yeah.
Anthony says Ultimate Spider-Man 1 is a classic issue now. Too bad the universe is no longer around.
That's why we buy these omnis, hardcovers, and you can always go back and revisit it.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I honestly, I would say so much of the Spidey movie moments we love came from stuff like this. And later, you could even argue Miles Morales. We owe him to this universe. That eventually became. I mean, the we have two of the Ultimate Spider-Man Miles Morales volumes where it's about him as, you know, Spidey, and I think it all just sort of starts here. In this early volume.
And I definitely, V has it too. Yeah. I definitely would like to get there eventually. Yeah.
Yeah.
Charlie and Kate, have you guys read that as well? Some of the Miles Morales stuff.
Yeah, it's really good. I think we have 3.
There's 3 of them. They're like the complete editions. So they're slightly double-sized trades or whatever.
Yeah.
Nice.
Down the hall. I love them so much. I love Miles Morales.
Yeah.
Do you have a preference of this versus that?
That one.
Oh, she's
Miles. Quick too. Yeah.
Same thing.
Yeah.
You like this one better. All right.
Charlie's.
Everybody's got their
Interesting.
house provided.
Yeah, I would like to. Yeah, my goal is to continue reading this for now and see where it goes, and then, you know, and then I definitely want to read more Miles too, so that I know this will lead into all that eventually. But aren't there other Ultimates too? There's a bunch of Ultimates, right? There's
a whole relaunch.
There's the Ultimates, which are the Avengers.
The Avengers, basically.
There's Ultimate Hawkeye.
Yeah.
Oh wow. Okay. So you're telling me I have a lot more to read.
Ultimate X-Men. They had Ultimate X-Men. I can't remember who was writing X-Men for that. Was it Morrison? No.
I was gonna say, so this wasn't all Bendis though. They all had.
No, he did the Ultimate Avengers at one point, but I don't think he did it for the whole run. I think he was mainly just doing the Spider-Man stuff.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Yeah, because they kicked it off with a Spider-Man, and then they decided to do the Ultimates and that kind of stuff further down the track with Mark Millar and all those guys. So yeah.
Oh yeah, that's right, Millar. Yeah.
Yeah, because that Ultimatum issue was, I think, a Millar crossover.
And then I want to say it culminated with Ultimate Fallout, which was the Miles Morales, like when they really just like blended universes and got rid of characters and kind of, and then of course.
Because did Ultimate Fallout go into Secret Wars or whatever it was, and they kind of like mushed it all together, and then they were like, "Surprise! It's one universe now."
I think so. I think they did it with that Hickman Secret Wars. They had like the Ultimate Universe and the 616 original universe kind of collided, and certain characters have lasted. So we have Reed Richards as the Maker, which was like this evil Reed Richards with like the Charles Xavier helmet thing. But he's continued to be a legit character from the Ultimate Universe that is still playing out today.
Yeah, definitely.
Anthony says, I loved how they modernized Spider-Man and really made it accessible to teens. Yeah.
That's really cool. I also recently picked up all the singles for that second, like the volume 2 of Ultimate Spider-Man that Bendis did. You know how they like rebooted it after his the thing that happens at the end where Miles comes in, and then I got all the Miles single issues as well for my collection.
Oh wow! Congratulations!
Yeah,
Sweet.
So I've got almost all of the. So I just had the original Ultimate single issues, Ultimate Spider-Man ones to start with, and so now I've almost got the whole way through, which
I feel like that's an entire collection in itself. Like it's so many books.
Yeah, it's a whole short box, like completely full. So
I did hear Ultimate X-Men was not good. So just as like a warning to people that like may go into Ultimate X-Men hoping for something good, I hear that it just was not on par.
Oh man, okay.
I think if you like the idea of X-Men, but you don't actually aren't hooked by any X-Men books in like 616 or like current, then you might like Ultimate. But if you do like 616 and current X-Men stuff, then usually I think you probably wouldn't like the Ultimate stuff. So yeah,
okay,
that's my understanding anyway, because I didn't love it. I just kind of was like, this is like whatever, you know.
Yeah. Well, very cool. I wanted to just kind of see if anybody, I know we're coming up on the hour here almost. If there are any other thoughts or things that maybe we didn't touch on that anybody wanted to point out or highlight, whether it was something funny or good or bad.
I would say kind of like. Sorry, go ahead.
Sorry. No, you go.
I would say kind of like, again, with the teenage choices, like his thing with Mary Jane, like how it's like all those romantic movies where like they don't talk to each other, and it's like finally in the middle of the movie they just finally start talking to each other. It just takes forever. Like, come on, like you guys take a hint.
Take a hint.
Literally sitting at the lunch table staring at you. What are
you waiting for? Yeah.
Oh wow.
Air Spider's little girl is saying hi. What's up?
Hey.
Aww.
Love it.
Cute. I love that.
I will say one of the things I think Bagley does the best. I know we've teased him about the hair drawings and things. I love the way he does action, and his panel to panel. Any of the fight sequences and action sequences are really stunning, really fluid. Like there's no jarring. He really knows how to tell a story picture to picture, and I think that's the highlight of this entire run. It is so action friendly, and it is so packed with things that I really just love the way he does his layouts.
Well said. Yeah, that was definitely. I enjoyed that a lot as well. Yeah, just the artwork, and I read this whole thing digitally too, so I got the literal panel to panel, movements throughout.
But I mean, I loved it when he did it in Amazing Spider-Man when I was a kid. Like I was a big Eric Larson fan, and then when he finished, Bagley took over, and it was very seamless. I loved what Bagley was doing in that time, and I think I was getting it. That was like one of my original pull list comics like that. I had that at a shop, and I was getting the issues month to month.
Nice.
And Bagley was amazing, man.
Yeah. What you got there,
like this panel is a pretty good example of sort of how his action sort of flows seamlessly, like right across the page. Like it just works so well.
Slam.
Anyway. Yeah,
that's cool.
I think that's a really good example of what John was saying. Yeah,
that whole scene was fun for me. The wrestling scenes, like especially the first one when the big brute first, like, pretty much thinks he's got it and everything, and then he's completely wrong.
Yeah,
I like that.
So fun. I can't wait for you to read a bit more, Justin, because I think I read in here up to issue 10 by the looks of it, and it just gets like better and better. Like there's just more stuff that you'll like and find funny, and like some more emotional notes and things like that. So I just think you'll have such a good time. So I can't wait for you to keep reading.
I'm definitely.
I also did want just checking my tabs to see if there's anything that we haven't already talked about. But I think we pretty much covered off everything that I tabbed in my book. So, yeah.
I love that I love your tabbing system that you have. Go ahead, Charlie.
I'm actually kind of random, but that is even the page. When this one. When he throws him down, like in this panel, I think, in that one. Yeah. This little movement kind of is like almost exactly what his hair looks like in the next few books. Longer, it looks almost exactly like that.
You're right.
Yeah.
Great catch.
Such a great observation.
Yeah.
Shout out to Brandon, because I agree that like the next volume pivots so strongly on Wilson Fisk that there are some amazing moments with Kingpin.
I can't wait
if
to
you like
get
that character at all. He does a lot of great stuff in the next volume.
Yeah. Do you think Bagley was better on ASM or USM?
I think it's tricky. I think the writing was better on USM personally. But I can't think of the character Carnage without Bagley's artwork. So in that, just the same way I can't think of Venom without thinking of McFarlane's artwork, I think. But I don't know. I more closely connect him to Ultimate than I do with ASM, just because I've not actually read his entire ASM run. I read the first like half, but it was a good run.
Yeah.
And then of course this run is even more impressive.
Nice. Yeah. Well, very cool. Anything else? Anyone else want to add anything before we kind of wrap this up here? Appreciate everybody. We got 11 people, by the way, hanging out in the chat. So appreciate everybody in the chat. Again, if you're not following Victoria or John's channel, make sure you do so. Put their information in the description below. I kind of wanted to hear all of your thoughts on getting like a grade for this, like a 1 out of 10 grade. If you guys want to do something like that. So I'll start with you, V. What would you give this if you were to put a grade on it?
I would probably give it a 8. And I'm really only knocking off points just for some of the kind of cringy dated language. Like, for example, when the gym teacher's like, "Are you a woman?" or whatever it was that he said, that I was just like, shut up.
Right.
And then, as we kind of talked about with the girls, some of those like cringy teenage moments just kind of makes it like, so yeah, that kind of knocks the point out as well. So, I mean, it's a pretty high grade for me. So,
yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely.
I mean, I like it. It's lots of fun.
Nice. I'll pass it to Kate. Kate, how would you grade this if you 1 out of 10, 10 being the best?
I'd probably give it an 8 or a 9, just because I love Spider-Man, and the way also I wanted to say something about the way the artist
Bagley, Mark Bagley.
Mark Bagley, he draws Peter when he's in his Spidey suit, when he's like, it makes him look so much like a spider, like the way his movements,
the poses.
are. Yeah.
The
one on the back,
like how he stands and like, yeah. That is really cool. That is
a great panel.
It makes him look like a spider, and it's really cool. I really like that.
Agreed.
Mm-hmm. So I'd give it like a 9 or an 8.
Nice. Fair.
9.5.
Awesome.
Charlie going 9.5. Love it.
Nice.
And Brandon's in the chat throwing a 10 down. Look at him.
I saw that.
I saw you, boy. I saw you.
It's his favorite
I think I'm
series,
in that 9 range. I think I'm probably in that 9 range as well. I think as a whole, it deserves a 9 out of 10. Maybe this volume is not the best of the whole run, but it's a great setup. Great setup.
Yeah, I think and that's the other thing. I'm sure, if we were to consider it as a whole or reading on, I mean, I can't wait to dive into more. I'm right up there with you guys. I think a 9 is where I'm going with as well. And definitely as a first time reading this, I mean, it was just really nice to, read it on paper and get the background story of Spider-Man. And again, it's weird because like I consider myself like, a big comic book fan, but like I just haven't had a lot of time to have experience with that character. So for me, this was like new, other than obviously the films helped a lot. So yeah, that definitely want to give it a 9. And it makes me want to read on. I would definitely recommend it to others for sure. If anybody's here. And to your point earlier, John, like what we were talking about, even backstage, like this is just a really great jumping on point for anybody. And that's what I'm always looking for, especially as like I said, I'm someone newer, and anyone else that's like looking to get into something to read more and learn more about Spider-Man. I would say this is a great place to start for this kind of stuff. So yeah, I'm all in for sure. So yeah. Very cool. Well, I think that just about wraps it up then. Everybody in the chat, thanks so much for hanging out with us today. Really appreciate you. And I'll follow up with you, with everybody here, as I move forward. Maybe we can do another one of these, coming up and, maybe we'll combine a couple. Maybe we'll get a couple of the Ultimate Spider-Man trades in instead of just the one. But I think this was a great way to kind of kick it off and get some of those classic scenes like the wrestling scene and stuff like that, and just him getting his powers for the first time. It's all fun to break down. So also Kate and Charlie, thank you so much for joining us and being part of the channel for the first time. Yeah, definitely want to have you on again at some point. I hope you had fun. John, no, this guy's always on my channel. He's always on my channel. No, I appreciate you joining as well, John. This is awesome. And again, thank you for the initial kickoff of recommendation for this for sure.
Absolutely.
And V, my co-host here. Awesome job as always. Thanks so much for also pushing me over the edge to getting into this. As I have a long list, V always has a long list for me to read. Actually, I feel like everybody has a long list for me to read, and I'm giving it right back.
You're doing your best to keep up.
Yeah. Pretty much anything Bendis, I'm like, read it, Justin. Read the Bendis stuff. So
yeah, V, you just mentioned Daredevil. I know, we were messaging the other day about eventually getting into the Daredevil stuff. So maybe we'll explore that at some point.
One of my favorite sort of eras of Marvel was when Bendis was doing like Daredevil, and then he did, Jessica Jones for their Max thing, and he did the New Avengers and all that sort of stuff. I just really love it all. So it's my favorite comic eras.
Nice. As Steve says, y'all did an amazing job. Appreciate that. Thank you again, everybody hanging out in the chat right now. And anybody watching the replay, make sure you smash the like button on the way out. John dropping links.
I dropped a link, and this was a couple of years back. Alec and I did a book club where we actually just read Amazing Fantasy 15, the original book. It was when the facsimile came out. Knights of Old came on with a raw copy of Amazing Fantasy 15 and flipped through every single page. We looked at every frame, every panel that Spidey is in, and we looked at an actual if your heart can handle it, if your strength can handle it. I also dropped it in our Instagram chat.
Oh my gosh.
But what an amazing way to look at the art from the original and see how it connects to Ultimate. It was pretty cool.
Man. So, I'd be nervous. I'd be so nervous.
Dude, I didn't know he was going to do it. And it was Kavi from Comic Books NYC and me and Al. Nice. We were like, hey, the facsimile came out. We'll read the facsimile. And then he's like, nah. And he's like, I got 2 or 3 of these. There's a bunch of AF-15s. He brought out the one that was like the most beat, and he like went through the camera right over it, and he went page by page through it. It was wild.
I'm like sweating just thinking about it. Like,
I'm sweating too. Whoa.
Was he wearing gloves, or did he just have
no gloves? I don't remember gloves.
Oh man. Yeah. What's up, JD? Thanks for stopping by, man. That's wild. Yeah, definitely check that out. Thank you for dropping that link. Again, everybody watching right now, thank you so much. Me and V will be back again with another comic book team up. We'll plan that out, so keep an eye out for that as we will post that over on Instagram. Make sure you're following V. Make sure you're following John. Again, Kate and Charlie, thank you so much for joining us on this special breakdown as well. And we will talk to you all later. Have a great weekend.